talking about something that's close to my heart. It's about the agency trap. It's a bit of a rant because I have seen a company that I work for fall into the agency trap, and I'm going to tell you about what happened to that company. So when we were little, we talked about what we wanted to be when we were older. I mean, maybe some of us wanted to be firefighters, or maybe somebody wanted to be a teacher, myself, an astronaut. But what about asking ourselves what we want our companies to be when they grow up? Do you want something that just pays the bills for you and your business partner? Do you want something that gives you purpose, solves some hard-world problems? Do you want something that's going to IPO and make you millions? Now, there's a lot of different ways to run a respectable and profitable business, but there's limited ways to build a business that's going to take off and really scale. And unless you're setting your goals and expectations early, it's easy to get taken off track and build something that turns into what you might not have really expected. So your biggest indicator of your ability to scale is to take a look at what it is that you actually sell as a business. This determines as to whether you're more of a product company or an agency. See, agencies sell their time in exchange for money, and this usually takes the form of client contracts and custom projects. Whereas product companies, on the other hand, they sell value that they create. Now, time is the one thing that we can't create more of. It's the ultimate limited resource. And so agency-style businesses can only scale with more human resources, more people providing more of their time to the business. Now, product companies are able to create value by investing time up front into this mix of products and services that can be resold again and again and again without needing a direct proportionate number of humans to scale. And so this is why product companies can scale into enormous tech giants, and ultimately why agencies can't. Now, there's absolutely no shame in building a service-based agency-type company. It's a brilliant way to make money and create purpose, solve problems, and get paid. But agencies don't change the world. Product companies do. Now, who's here to make a dent in the world? Yeah. All right, here's the product companies. I should introduce myself. I am Janna Bastow. I am a product person at heart. You might pick this up from my vibe. You might know me as one of the founders of Mind the Product, which is the world's largest community of product people. You also might know me as the co-founder and CEO of ProdPad, which is a tool for product teams. It uses AI and other tools to help you make better product decisions, extract value from your backlog, and build roadmaps that people actually pay attention to. Now, before all this, about a decade ago, I was a product person for a company in London. And when I joined as a product manager. That was my title. But about a week after I joined, I discovered that I was actually going to be lined up to do a lot more project management than I had expected. Now, the company hadn't knowingly missold me on this job. They'd just been stuck, they'd gotten stuck in this trap that I now see is a really common pattern. I see it all the time amongst companies, amongst these product teams that I spend time with. So I'm here to tell you about this trap and hopefully keep you from falling into it. So today's talk is going to be a journey. I'm going to talk about the power of product in terms of discovery versus delivery-focused work. I'm going to talk about the reasons why companies get pulled off track from their product-led goals. I'm going to give you some clear signs to watch for as to why you might be veering into agency territory and why you're no longer acting like a scalable product company. And I'm going to give you some actionable tips on how to get out, including how to think about your team and set your pricing and format your roadmap so you don't get stuck in this trap. So, are we ready, Bucharest? All right. Let's go. So why is discovery so powerful? I mean, discovery is at the heart of what product teams do. The very nature of what we do is to cast a wide research net to identify problems and hold back from committing to a solution. The product team then has a process of essentially guessing and checking to optimize to find the best possible solution that's cost-effective and desirable to the market and feasible to build and valuable to the business. And it's a process that can take years and is messy and doesn't guarantee success by any means. But when it is successful, it pays off in spades. Now contrast this with how agencies work. In an agency, the client identifies the problem for you. They do the discovery. And then they enlist your team to tackle that specific problem, and you and your team get paid for that piece of work. So as a product person, you should cherish every moment you get to spend in discovery mode. This is where the big, juicy problems are found and cracked, and the real value is discovered. Now, delivery is when you're honing in on a particular problem. You know, it's more of a means to an end. You have to have delivery because it ultimately pays the bills, but it's not the earth-moving disruptive activity that discovery has the potential to be. But you have to have balance. You have to have enough time to discover the problems, but then, of course, spend some time delivering on the solutions. But what if this gets thrown off balance? What if you're like me and you start off with great intentions to discover problems and interesting ways to solve them, but before you know it, you've got your hands tied with too many delivery commitments? So many companies start off with wanting to be product companies. Product manager hiring, it's on the up again. There's lots of support and knowledge out there about how to build a product company. So we're all out there saying, yeah, we want to make a dent on the world. We're all setting our course for takeoff. And yet, we go in with this idea of building and scaling a company, and we end up in this same trap, acting like an agency, taking on custom client jobs and commitments that carve in to our time that otherwise could be spent on discovery. And rather than take off, it causes us to sputter and fail. So, what's going on? Well, I'm going to talk about some of the reasons why you might get pulled off track. To start with, building a product company simply takes time. You've often got months or even years where your product, before your product's actually generating any revenue to cover the cost of the investment, to cover the cost of the team. And so a lot of companies resort to hiring out their time in exchange for cash in the short term. Cash is king. It keeps the lights on. Or you get addicted to features. Features are cool, right? Sales and marketing come in and they convince you that this one extra feature that you could build is going to be that one thing to win this client and maybe lots of others like them. Or you get drawn to the deep pockets and the allure of the big, recognizable logos of those enterprise clients. It's really easy to get distracted when somebody's waving around a checkbook. Or maybe you've taken in funding and you've made some big promises to your investors about where it is you're meant to be by now. And so you're making up for gaps in that bottom line, taking in cash to just bridge that time. Now, nearly every startup company starts off with great intentions of following a scientific methodology of measuring and learning and iterating until they've solved the most valuable problems in the world, but these go out the window in times of stress. Sometimes whatever we need to do to get to the next round becomes selling time for money. And it's easy to get stuck, because let's admit it, making money and cashing checks is addictive. Except that every minute of time that a client buys to have you work on their problems is a minute that you can't spend discovering and solving the bigger problems in the world. Now, there's a chance, a slim chance, but there's a chance that the client happens to identify a problem that's big enough to apply to a wider market that you can resell this solution to others. But more often than not, you're tricking yourself. You're in delivery mode. You haven't just magically leapfrogged years of real discovery and work there. So as someone who's been there and has seen countless companies go down this path, I can share one clear sign that your company is veering into agency mode. I'm going to have to look at your roadmap. The roadmap is an incredible tool. It's a diagnostic tool for your company. Show me your roadmap, and I'll tell you how your company might be dysfunctional. So I'll show you some examples here. Let's say you're simply missing a roadmap, or you don't have anything tied back to your objectives, or you don't have any vision outlined. This probably shows me that your team is lacking alignment. Or let's say your roadmap is filled with a bunch of features and solutions instead of problems to be solved. I mean, this is telling me that your team probably lacks alignment to figure out the path ahead for themselves. Or let's say your roadmap is dictated from above. There's a plan to execute given to you by your execs, and there's no room for questions or experiments. This suggests that there's probably a lack of psychological safety in the team. But the biggest offender of them all, the one that tells me that you're probably in the agency trap already, is the sales-led roadmap. So the roadmap, it's such a telling feature of the company. So in a discovery-led roadmap, it should be a series of problems to solve that facilitates a discussion around what could be solved and in what order to reach the product vision. In a sales-led org, the roadmap looks more like this. Now, so do you guys want to see the worst roadmap ever? All right. This is my roadmap from years ago. The gray areas represented the discovery-led work, right? This is the stuff we were building for the wider market. We were trying to find the biggest, juiciest problems out there to solve and the best ways to solve them. Unfortunately, our time was dominated by these green strips. This is what we called enterprise and partner launches. These were things that we're doing to close specific deals by specific dates. And yeah, it got us paid that month, but look at what the cost was. For the preceding quarter, we basically did nothing to further the vision of our core product. All of our work was tied up in partner work, and while it looked like the partner work cleared up in the future, it never actually did. Our salespeople were always coming back with this big grin on their face, telling us about this thing that they had just sold. And of course, we'd look at it and figure out that, of course, it required us to put something else on the roadmap. Unfortunately, we didn't do a fraction of the discovery work that we'd planned to do, that we wanted to do. Ultimately, this business failed. Now, some of you might be out there interviewing right now, looking for your next job, looking to figure out where your next steps are. You want to figure out how to see if a company is in the agency trap? Ask to see their roadmap. It's really telling. Ask to see the roadmap. If they can't show you a roadmap, that might tell you something. Ask how things got on the roadmap. Who makes the roadmap? How do changes get made in the roadmap? Where did certain things on the roadmap come from? Ask these sorts of questions and start picking apart where work is coming from and how intentional this company is about building things and what kind of company they see themselves as. So, I've been seeing people nodding along. I think there might be some people who are in the agency trap. We've all been there. So, let's talk about how to get out. If you recognize that you have been sacrificing too much discovery time for delivery time, then the first thing to do is to acknowledge it, to start having tough conversations. And this means having those conversations at the exec level, bringing it up wherever you can, and admitting that these sacrifices have been made. Making sure that people in key roles in the business know what's happening and how it potentially impacts the outlook of the company if they don't spend enough time discovering where the company could go. And as part of that question, or as part of that conversation, ask the question, what kind of company are we trying to be? What do we want to grow up to be? Now, maybe you get the answer that taking on all this client work, this service-based stuff, this agency work, is actually all part of the plan. That might be okay. It's better that you know now, and you can adjust your roles and your expectations accordingly. Maybe the aspiration is to be a huge tech company and to scale, and management's plan here is just to take on little bits here and there, but they've got a balanced plan here. They're going to take it on just to avoid a risky round of funding or to get the team to another stage. That might be okay too, but it's important that you have this conversation and people across the company know what it is they're doing and why they're doing it, and that they are doing it intentionally so there is that balance and decisions can be made strategically about when commitments are made and when they're not made. And if you are going to continue doing agency, service-based work, custom work, then separate it out into its own unit. Have a different half of the team working on it, and then charge properly for it. I see too many product companies coming up with tiny numbers for custom work and giving away their time for nothing, and it's such a shame. Remember that time is the most limited resource that you have. If someone's asking for custom development, do not be afraid to ask for eye-watering fees for it. Remember, they're buying time that you could otherwise be using to build your rocket ship. Now, their alternative might be to go to another development team out there, but is it? I mean, they're probably coming to you because you've built something special and proprietary in the first place. You've built a core product, and they're asking for some sort of custom development on top of it. So their alternative is to build the entire product themselves and then that custom bit on top, which is going to be costly for them. And yeah, they might go with a competitor, but there's a reason they're asking you. And yeah, you might lose some deals this way, but remember, you're a product company. You're trying to sell a product at the end of the day. You're not trying to be an agency. Remember that. You're not trying to sell your time. Otherwise, it's not worth your time. So charge accordingly. Charge more for this time if you are going to give it away, and get rid of time wasters. And then start decreasing your dependence on this agency-style, custom work type cash. So work out a plan in your roadmap that allows you to improve your product so you can sell more and more of that and decrease your dependence on your agency work, your client custom work. So if today it's 80% delivery and 20% discovery that you do, then when can you get that to a 70-30 split? How long is it going to take you to get to a 50-50 split? Be intentional about those steps and start planning it out with your team about how you're going to make that move towards being a more product-focused company. It's not going to happen overnight, and it's not going to happen by itself. It will take you and your team to gather around, acknowledge that there is a problem with the way that the company is running, and then start acting towards building a plan towards it. And then finally, ditch that sales-led roadmap. By changing the format of your roadmap, you're going to help change the habits of your team and set you on a healthier course. So, as I said, this is a sales-led roadmap, and it's largely driven by features and client deliverables. And ultimately, it looks more like a project Gantt chart than it does what a roadmap really should look like. So ditch this format and go with something more like this. So a discovery-led roadmap looks entirely different. It's centered around business objectives to meet, might be around revenue or user targets or customer problems to solve. And the product manager, they use the roadmap to make sure that things are prioritized, that they're making the most use of the resources, and are spending time discovering and figuring out the most valuable problems to solve first. It's not overrun by client commitments. So let's talk about how a discovery roadmap comes to be. So one fundamental thing to remember in the discovery journey is that your product is a big unknown. Each of you is building a unique product that no one else here has built before. You're on a journey. You're building into uncharted territory. It's like you've landed on a new, unknown shore, and you know that you want to get to that big gold-top mountain in the distance there, but you have to pick out the best path along the way. So you've got certain resources with you now, and you've got to pick up more resources and knowledge along the way. And it's up to you and your team to survey your surroundings and figure out what problems are in front of you and what problems you need to solve along the way. So every product is a unique journey. So this is where the concept of horizons come in. You're standing here at the now. You can see what's keeping your team busy right now and what problems are right in front of you. So let's say you land on this new shore and there's a bear right in front of you. Like, that's your first problem to solve. It's crystal clear, and unless someone sees a different, bigger problem, you better start thinking of ways to solve that problem. But you can also see off into the distance, that big mountaintop that you wanted to conquer. Now, there's probably problems that you want to solve there too. Maybe something like keeping warm or getting ice climbing gear, but those are too specific. You don't need to break it down in that much detail. But if there's known chunky problems like get up that mountain, then make sure to note those down so your team knows that these are things that they need to start heading towards once they've finished dealing with the bear-shaped problem right in front of them. And you can also see off into the middle distance in various directions and to various levels of degrees. Now, how well depends on how well equipped and what your starting position is. And you might spot opportunities along the way or problems that you need to overcome or avoid. Maybe there's a glistening city partway around the way that might allow you to pick up some resources or a bog that you need to get over. Note these down, make sure people can see what's on the horizon. And there's probably, almost certainly, multiple paths that you could take to get through this journey. And from where you're standing, you just got here. You don't know what the best one is. After all, the further things are in the distance, the less certain you are about them, and that's okay. Like right now, it might be faster to build that bridge. That might be a good assumption, but it might mean that you miss the uplift in resources from visiting that city, or it might mean that it takes you longer to get around the bog. Now, you can't just whip out your phone and pull up Google Maps. This is uncharted territory, right? You're not building a path that somebody else has done before. There is no right answer. But some answers are better than others, and the teams who come up with the best answers are the ones who regularly regroup and share what it is that they have individually seen, and talk about what problems they've seen on the horizon, what assumptions they've made, and talk about how they're going to tackle the issues that are in front of them as a team. So these horizons translate to a product roadmap. Instead of that timeline of delivery dates and commitments, which is this single date-driven line marching forwards, think in terms of these three buckets. So in the first bucket now, you're really granular about your focus and your scope. This is the stuff that's being prototyped and tested and built right now. And the later column is less about specific initiatives, right? It's more about outlining the problems that you think need to be solved in order to fulfill your vision. So it's really easy to get sucked into the agency trap if you don't have aligned goals. So this is where a framework like OKRs comes in as well. Who here is using OKRs or has tried OKRs? Yeah, more people have tried it than are actively using it. I'm going to address that. It stands for objectives, which are your high-level qualitative goals, and key results, your specific time-bound measures. And so the concept of OKRs is that the company helps set this high-level North Star objective, the top-level objective, and the team works together to decide how they can help contribute to that goal. It cascades down. So this is vastly different than the old-school way of doing management, where you think of management setting goals for each individual team and micromanaging the progress. It means that it's more naturally using the knowledge of the whole team, which means that gaps are better filled and spotted. The team can work more autonomously and isn't held up by limitations in knowledge or time from the middle or top management. But there is a problem with OKRs. They aren't perfect. One of the big complaints about them is what I call OKR drift. You've probably experienced this for those of you who've tried OKRs. It's what happens when you set your objectives and key results up in one space, maybe a spreadsheet or an OKR tracking sheet or something like that, over here, and you set all your goals. But then at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, when you're asked to go update them, you go back, but you've been spending the entire time working in your product space where you've been learning and iterating and changing and shifting. And so when you go back, you haven't been looking in your tracking space, and so you look back and you say, well, OKRs don't represent the stuff that I work on, or OKRs can't keep up with our team. They've lost relevance with what we're doing. So a word that you need in the OKR world is initiatives. This is going to help you fight OKR drift. For some reason, it's like the forgotten middle child of OKRs. I guess because Oikers doesn't have a good ring to it. An initiative describes the specific activities or projects the team is working on to influence the success of the OKR. So even if you identify what you need to achieve based on the company strategy and determine what good looks like, you're not going to get very far if you're not able to outline the actions you plan to take in order to get there. So let's use this as an example. Let's say you want to increase your user engagement in your SaaS platform. So that's your objective. And you might have a couple of key results that go with it. So let's say you're measuring progress by something like achieve a 20% increase in monthly active users and a 15% increase in your average session duration. So to hit these key results, you're not going to do it by just willing them to happen. This is where the drift happens, because people set the OKRs and then they go and do something else altogether. You're going to have to take action and outline that action and make it clear as to how those actions are connected to those OKRs. So your initiative might be something around addressing the top 3 pain points that you've identified in your feedback, or simplifying the experience in your app around the core jobs to be done. So chances are you're going to need to make progress on both of these initiatives in order to hit this goal. And within each initiative, there's probably a number of different things that you can try. We'll call those experiments. So all of this ties together into what I'd call a lean roadmap or a discovery-led roadmap. So each of these blocks here are initiatives. They're problems to be solved. Each is linked to a specific objective to ensure alignment, and also 2 experiments to ensure the team is taking different approaches to figure out how to solve those problems. So this is one popular configuration. You might notice the now, next, later roadmap, a lean roadmap, a discovery roadmap. Certainly not a timeline roadmap, though. We're getting rid of that. There's no client commitments on here. There's no timelines. This is one configuration. And this is another layout that's really similar. All it's doing is grouping initiatives by objective. Now, the value of this roadmap format, when paired with objectives this way, is that it takes the focus off building features and hitting delivery dates, and helps your team strive towards solving problems. Now, I know that this whole ditching the timeline roadmap thing can be pretty controversial. I know some of you have done it already, which is great. Others have tried and had some pushback. I've had some good conversations with people already about this. I've actually written a guide on how to ditch the timeline roadmap, and the last page of the guide, it's a 6-page guide, and the last page is all about how to handle the objections from any stakeholder who's might be holding tightly onto this notion that in order to keep going, they need to make delivery commitments to clients. So I'll use this guide to help you tackle any objections you've got, but if you have specific questions, hit me up in the Q&A or hit me up later and I'll help you tackle that particularly tricky stakeholder. And I also know that having examples on hand can be such a valuable tool in getting your team on board. So we've launched a sandbox version of ProdPad where we have example roadmaps and OKRs and ideas and experiments and feedback all tied together in a product management space. It's freely editable, it's completely free to use, so you can create something in there, show it off with your team, give people an idea as to what you'd like to do with your own roadmap. But here's the secret for you. You don't have to go product. There's a big world out there and lots of ways of providing value and making money. If you're going to go the agency route, then acknowledge it and own it and hire for it and do it properly, including setting pricing and expectations accordingly. Just don't fall prey to the most common killer of product companies, product companies get sucked in by the allure of this agency work because it solves an immediate problem in the near term, but forces them to take their eye off the ball. If done well, it can bridge them to the next round and on to success, but if done badly, it can doom the company. So start acting now to identify and work towards building the type of company that you want in the future. Just remember to ask yourself, what kind of company do you want to grow up to be? I hope I've left you with some food for thought, some useful takeaways. I've got the slides here for you, so feel free to grab a copy of them and take them home with you. Share them with your team and other product people. Would love to get your feedback on it. I've got the link here as well. So thank you so much for your attention today. Been absolutely brilliant being here. I'm always up for connecting and chatting further. Find me as Simply Bastow. Find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Janna Bastow there, so I'm really easy to find. Drop me an email. I'm always happy to chat product. Thank you, and enjoy your How to Web. And I do believe we have time for some questions.
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. Let's see if there are any questions in the audience. Right, so it's still a bit too early for questions.
We'll give another minute. Who's got questions?
Sorry?
Any questions?
Right, we do have a question
Somebody in the front there, thank you.
It's the question that we all want to know a little bit more about in the world of product, right? How is AI going to change the world of product management?
Oh, such a good question. Okay, I've been thinking a lot about how AI is going to change product management. So AI is a really interesting space, right? I mean, we've all seen what generative AI has been able to do for the last year or so. I don't think it's going to replace product people. I think there's still a place for us, but I think it is going to change the way that we work. We're already seeing it change the way that people work. We've applied it to ProdPad, for example, with allowing you to take some of the grunt work away with how you generate ideas and user stories and, remove some of the grunt work that product managers do. But ultimately, AI helps you figure out as a product manager, your job is to find the thing that's most useful, desirable, and usable. Now, AI tends towards what is average. It gives you great middle ground answers. As a product manager, having something that helps you give you a good answer to what makes something more usable and removes bugs from your code, that's really going to help us. When it comes to something that is helping you with your interfaces, having AI help with that, that's going to help us in a lot of ways, because you don't want interfaces, simple interfaces like logins, to be out of the ordinary. We want to tend towards the average. But product managers are always going to have a space where we have to think about what's going to be valuable. So product management is going to be less about crafting spec documents and writing user stories and trying to come up with the unique way of doing things. We're going to spend our time curating and coming up with what makes our products unique. Less about writing the specs and doing the busy work delivering the 80%, and more of that time working on the unique 20%. So I'm actually really excited for what AI is going to enable us to do. Thanks for that question. There's another one over there.
Hi, Janna. Love the talk.
Hi, thank you.
It's quite a big question. I don't expect you to answer it all, but what about the opposite? What if you are an agency that wants to get into product? So you've got like a couple of million in ARR, your product's tiny, it doesn't represent much of what you are, but you want to move from agency to product. How do you do that? I mean, I don't expect a full answer, but what are some of the simple steps you could take?
Yeah, so if you're an agency and you want to start productizing, then again, it's about being deliberate about it. Because when you're moving from a company that is quite agency-driven and you start spending more of your time in the discovery space, you're going to have to give up your delivery time to make an investment in that discovery space. And that might mean giving up on time that you're otherwise doing stuff that pays your bills. So can you build up enough of a buffer to do so? Do you need to take an investment? This is why product companies take an investment, is so that allows them to get that buffer in cash so they can spend time building up a product that they can sell down the line. Being an agency company is actually a really great way of proving out whether you've got something that could actually be resold again and again and again, right? How many product companies have actually grown out of otherwise service companies who realized that what they had, if they just packaged it slightly differently, they could just resell it over and over and over again. I mean, what is software as a service, SaaS, besides software that we've put into a box and made into a service, but it's really more of a product? Good question, thank you.
Thank you so much, Janna.
There was one more there,
perfect.
if we got time.
Perfect. Yes.
Hi, Janna. Thank you.
Of course, hi.
So I'm working with I'm an agency. I'm a marketing agency. I'm working with a enterprise sales type of business. So they're a B2B company selling a SaaS to enterprise clients, and they're actually using, and I think this is a good way of doing things. But I'm interested in your opinion. They are using sales calls as discovery because there is not enough of customers, clients that they can have interviews with, and so they're using, and I think they're doing a good job, but I'm just curious, what's your thought about that approach?
That's actually the perfect approach, right? So if you've got salespeople who are going out there and selling stuff that doesn't exist yet, I have had that. That is the worst. Those salespeople you need to get rid of them, or you need to retrain them, right? Because if a salesperson can't sell what you have already today, either your product isn't ready, because literally not sellable, or more often than not, they're not good enough salespeople. They're not trying hard enough. Their job is to sell what you have, and if they can't sell what you have, then you need to work with them to figure out what is your ICP, who will buy that, and they should go sell that. And then redeploy them as discovery people. Right? So they're not there to sell what doesn't exist, but they can come back, and they should come back with really good insights as to, well, I talked to 15 people this week, and 5 of them said that if you had this, this would be useful. Now, this should all be coming into a space. Like we have ProdPad for this, for example. You can use it to gather these insights and then figure out these trends, saying, oh, lots of people, particularly of this size type company, are asking for this thing. Maybe this should shape our roadmap. And so sales should be one of the big inputs for what it is that you're building. They shouldn't be inputs in the sense that they say, I sold it, go build it. They should be a big input in saying, here's what we've learned, here's where I think the market is going, because here's the evidence, actual customer calls. It's a great question, thank you. So I think that was me running out of time there. I want to say a huge thank you. If you have more questions, come find me in the break today. Hit me up on Umbrella, or you've got my email now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Janna.